What's going on, YouTube? So this is 1361 Monumentum Street. Try to zoom in so you guys can see. Everything down there is basically the Palisades, all the way up until the ocean. It's kind of a gloomy day today. The other day I was up on that hill over there in that direction off of Chautauqua. I can imagine all of those hills over there on the left were probably on fire. The other day I was up on that hill, on the top of that cliff over there, on the top of Chautauqua. It's amazing how these more modern homes look as if they've been untouched. It's unbelievable, really. I'm sure there's probably some significant damage on the inside though. Smoke damage. Oh, that's crazy. These houses probably won't be too hard to clean up. They are fairly flat. So, those ones alongside the hill will be extremely challenging to clean up. Up there on top of that hill is where that construction worker, Anthony, that I spoke with, he's up there right now. I saw him earlier this morning. He was up there at 5 in the morning excavating on the side of that cliff. These houses down here at the bottom, this will be fairly easy to pick up all this mess down here. The ones up there, alongside the cliff, that will be extremely challenging though. You know, earlier I was in the ABC streets, and they are starting to make a pretty significant amount of progress with the whole cleanup, you know, over in that area. But you know, when you think about it, you know, I've said this before, cleaning up is really going to be the easy part. The real struggle and the real challenge is what's going to happen when everything's cleaned up and the army is no longer here. You know, once the army is done picking up all of this debris, then what? Where do we go from here? Right? That's going to be the real test and the real challenge. Whether or not these residents are going to want to rebuild and start over and go through the whole rebuilding process again. Potentially a decade. You know, on average, it probably takes somewhere between 3 to 5 years to build a house in the Pacific Palisades. But that was, you know, prior to the fires. You know, that number is going to be a lot bigger than what it was. It's not going to be 3 to 5 years anymore. Maybe I suppose it just depends on how deep your pockets are. If you got a pretty fat bankroll and you know some politicians or some people who can pull permits pretty quickly, I'm sure it just depends on who you know. But a lot of people are going to struggle to have their homes rebuilt and rebuilt cost effectively. You know. These guys are all suited up there. See some bad stuff up there. What's up, brother? One could only imagine how challenging it's going to be to rebuild a house like this. You know, I can't put on enough emphasis how hard it's going to be, especially if these tariffs really do come into play. The majority of these building materials or building materials that are used to construct these houses, the majority of them are imported goods, whether it's concrete from Mexico, plywood or 2x4s from Canada, PVC pipe from China, electrical wires from China, like copper, steel pipes, you know, electrical wiring, drywall, just the list goes on and on and on. the roof shingles, everything. It's basically everything. These houses are built with, not only cheap labor, more often than not, cheap illegal labor, to be honest with you. A lot of these home builders will subsidize construction costs with illegals, So now these guys are going to be asking for a premium. And you believe it or not, some of these guys, these people that come up from Mexico and they work really hard. Like I give them as much credit as I can, because a lot of these guys work their ass off. They come up here from Mexico and they sleep in their cars for a couple of months straight, and they make $20 to $30 an hour, and they're just getting paid in cash. They don't have health insurance or benefits or medical or dental or anything like that. A lot of these guys are, $20 to $30 an hour, and they work, 10-hour shifts. So they're making $300 a day. They're not working for $8 an hour, and they're carrying bags of concrete and pipe and digging ditches, and they work. These boys work, all right? So if you're a contractor and you paint houses or build houses or you're an electrician, like, you really use them to your advantage, and they do. They work hard. For the most part, they don't complain, and they're pretty good at what they do for the most part. Some of them suck, but it just comes with experience, right? You get better at anything. The more houses you build, the better you get at it. So, but you better believe that these houses will be rebuilt with cheap illegal labor. And you'll say, oh, you can't do that, Oh, yes, you can. There are ways. Whether or not you agree with it doesn't really matter. It's not like there's people going around to these job sites enforcing the laws. Not in California, anyways. Maybe in Arkansas or something. Not over here. But I mean, if you're a contractor, you really need them, If you guys think that they're only getting paid $8 an hour, you're wrong. It's 20 to 30, and they work 10-hour shifts. And more often than not, they work 7 days a week. Maybe if they're lucky, they get one day off, And if they complain or moan and cry and fuss, hey, there's 100 more guys ready to roll. So this is how you roll up to these job sites, and they all got brand new Chevy trucks. These guys are making $300 a day, cash, no taxes. But I mean, if they get hurt on the job, if you're the contractor and one of them sues you, you got a problem on your hands. And this has been going on for decades. It's not like a secret. Some of them are really good. A lot, honestly, like my brother and my father are both in the construction industry, and some of the guys that they have working for them they're really good at what they do. They can turn, a property like this into something magnificent, like truly beautiful, like a piece of art. So you gotta give them credit. If I was from Mexico, I'd do the same thing. I'd leave that place. That place is going nowhere. I kind of wonder, if you're from Mexico, or if you're from Guatemala or Argentina or El Salvador or wherever it is you're from, and you leave your country to go to the United States to work, do you think like they consider you like a traitor? Like you betrayed your country, like you left your country. Instead of helping Mexico become a better quality country, you fled to the States. Ever since the Ukraine war in Los Angeles, you're starting to see, wherever I go, a lot more Ukrainians and Russians. If you left the war, are you considered a traitor? Have you betrayed your countrymen? Your country? Sorry, it's a pretty steep incline up here. Got my work cut out for me. More. Good, how are you? Look at that property. You can imagine how beautiful. You can see those big openings within the I-beams. Those were probably giant windows overlooking the Palisades. And they had an infinity pool right down there at the bottom. Oh man, such a shame. That would have been your view. Overlooking the Palisades in Santa Monica.